I stood near the back wall of the presentation room, holding a notepad I didn't need. 23 people filled the space. Investors from Grandstone Holdings, senior partners from our firm, and him, Dalton, the VP who'd arrived 6 months ago with a reputation built on deals he'd supposedly closed at his last place. He was talking about overseas operations. Specifically, how the target company's international divisions had hidden weaknesses that most analysts would miss. How the numbers looked healthy on the surface but revealed serious problems once you dug deeper. How restructuring their European and Asian branches before finalizing the acquisition would save millions. Every word coming out of his mouth was mine. Every insight, every number, every solution. The key, he said, tapping the projection behind him, is recognizing that their Brussels branch has been masking losses by shifting inventory between regions. Once you see the pattern, the whole structure falls apart. I'd found that pattern. 3 weeks into my analysis, at 2 a.m, cross-referencing their quarterly filings with customs declarations I'd requested from a contact I'd built over years of doing this kind of work. Not glamorous work, background work. The kind nobody notices until it's already changed everything. An investor raised her hand. This level of detail is impressive. How long did this analysis take? Dalton smiled, the kind of smile that made people trust him. About 3 months of intensive research. I wanted to be thorough. My pen pressed into the paper. I wasn't writing anything, just pressing. Another investor leaned forward. And you're confident about these projections? The savings you're promising? Absolutely, Dalton said. I stake my reputation on it. Your reputation, I thought, built on my work. The woman sitting closest to me whispered to her colleague, "He's good, really good." I wanted to laugh or scream. Instead, I stood there, perfectly still, watching him soak up admiration for work he couldn't have done if his life depended on it. Then he said it. Someone asked who'd helped with the research. A reasonable question. These things require teams. Everyone knows that. Dalton gestured vaguely in my direction. Oh, I had some administrative support. Pulling files, organizing data. My assistant helped with the basic legwork. Administrative support, basic legwork, assistant, just a secretary, really, he added, like he was being generous by mentioning me at all. She handles scheduling, keeps things running smoothly. But the strategic analysis, that's where real expertise comes in. The room didn't react. Why would they? To them, I was furniture. Useful furniture, maybe, but nothing worth noticing. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Anger would have been hot, impulsive. This was colder, clearer, the kind of clarity that comes when you finally see a situation exactly as it is. I'd spent 8 years at this firm, 8 years building relationships, learning how deals actually worked, developing instincts that most people with graduate degrees never acquired. I'd started young, right out of college, answering phones and managing calendars for Gregor, the partner who ran mergers and acquisitions back then. Gregor saw something in me early on, maybe because I asked questions, maybe because I actually read the briefings I was supposed to file, maybe because I started spotting inconsistencies in proposals before the analysts did. You've got a brain for this, he'd told me once, late on a Thursday night when we were preparing for a huge negotiation. Most people see numbers. You see what the numbers are hiding. He'd started pulling me into meetings, not as a participant, but as an observer. Watch their faces when we mention valuation, he'd whisper. See how the CFO just tensed up? That number scares him, which means it's probably accurate. I learned more in those quiet observations than I ever could have in any classroom. How to read people, how to track patterns, how to know when someone was lying about their company's health, how to find the truth buried in hundreds of pages of financial statements. Gregor got promoted 18 months ago, moved to head the entire division. I was happy for him. He deserved it. Then Dalton arrived. You're going to love working with him, Gregor had said, introducing us. Dalton closed the Beaumont deal at his last firm. Really sharp. Dalton had smiled at me that same trust-building smile. I'm sure we'll work great together. I believe in strong teams. Strong teams. Right. The first month was fine. Normal. I managed his schedule, handled his calls, prepared briefings for his meetings. Standard work. Then he started asking me questions. Small ones at first. What do you think of this valuation? Or, Does this timeline seem realistic to you? I answered honestly, pointed out potential problems, suggested alternatives. It felt good, actually, like maybe he valued my input. By the second month, the questions got bigger. Walk me through how Gregor used to approach these deals. What was his process? I explained. The research methods, the relationship building, the way Gregor always insisted on verifying information through multiple sources before trusting it. Smart, Dalton had said. I knew there was a reason this firm had such a good track record. Month 3, he handed me the Grandstone acquisition. I need deep background on this. Everything you can find. Their operations, their finances, their people. Can you handle that? Can I handle that? I'd been handling that kind of work for years, just never with my name attached to it. Of course, I'd said. I dove in, spent nights rebuilding their financial models from scratch, because the ones they'd provided didn't match their public filings. Found connections between their subsidiaries that explained some unusual transactions. Discovered that their fastest-growing division was actually hemorrhaging money through a complex structure that shifted losses between countries. The Brussels inventory scheme, the Asian branch inflation, the European restructuring opportunity, all of it, every piece. I wrote it up, clearly, thoroughly, handed it to Dalton with a full breakdown of what I'd found and what it meant. This is excellent work, he'd said, barely glancing at it. Really excellent. I'll take it from here. I'd felt proud, useful, like I was contributing to something important. Then came the presentation. Today, right now, with him standing up there claiming everything I'd discovered as his own brilliant strategy. Just a secretary. The meeting wrapped up. Investors shook Dalton's hand, congratulated him. One of them mentioned bringing him in on another deal they were considering. I'd be honored, Dalton said. This is what I do, finding the truth in the numbers. Finding the truth in the numbers. My phrase. I'd said that exact thing to him 6 weeks ago when explaining how I'd uncovered the Brussels scheme. I walked back to my workspace. Not fled, not stormed off, just walked, purposefully, like I had work to do. Because I did have work to do. My name is Iris, and I just decided that being underestimated was about to become the most expensive mistake of Dalton's life. I sat down and opened my personal laptop, the one I used for correspondence that wasn't company business. 2 weeks earlier, I'd received a message through a professional networking site from Keller Briggs, CEO of Grandstone Holdings. The company Dalton was currently charming in the other room. The message had been brief. Someone suggested I reach out to you. Dalton and I worked together years ago. Before we finalize anything, I wanted to get your perspective on him. Off the record, I value honest opinions. I'd responded professionally, carefully, mentioned that I supported merger preparation work, didn't say much else. It wasn't my place to comment on my superior, and I genuinely believed at that point that Dalton and I were working together. Now, sitting at my workspace, while he probably scheduled celebration drinks in the other room, I opened a new message to Keller. Before I continue further, I need to say thank you to everyone who's been listening so far. Your support means everything. It's what keeps these stories going. If you're finding this worth your time, I appreciate you being here. Now, back to the story. I started typing. Mr. Briggs, I hope this message finds you well. I need to bring something important to your attention regarding the analysis presented today. The financial projections you received contain significant inaccuracies. Specifically, the liability calculations for the overseas subsidiaries are incorrect. The Brussels branch isn't just masking losses through inventory shifts. There are additional unreported obligations that weren't included in today's presentation. The risk exposure is substantially higher than what was discussed. I paused. Reread it. This wasn't emotion. This wasn't spite. This was information he needed to know. Information that could save his company from a disastrous acquisition. I continued. I'm attaching my original analysis, the complete version. You'll notice discrepancies between what I found and what was presented today. I believe your legal team should verify these findings independently before any agreements are finalized. The numbers matter, and these numbers are wrong. I attached my files, the real ones, the detailed breakdowns I'd spent 3 months creating, the ones that showed not just problems, but the actual depth of those problems, the ones Dalton had taken and then softened, made prettier, made more appealing to investors who wanted to hear good news. My finger hovered over the send button. This would end the deal. Absolutely end it. $2 billion of negotiations, gone. Dalton's reputation, destroyed. Possibly my job, finished. But here's what I knew that Dalton didn't. I understood the actual numbers, the real situation. And if Grandstone went through with this acquisition based on the fantasy version Dalton had presented, they'd lose far more than $2 billion. They'd lose everything. Keller deserved the truth, even if that truth burned everything else down. I clicked send, closed my laptop, went back to organizing files like nothing had happened, because that's what secretaries do, right? We organize files, handle administrative tasks, keep things running smoothly, while the real experts do the important work. 32 minutes passed. I know, because I counted them. Then Dalton's phone started buzzing. He looked at it, frowned, rejected the call. The buzzing stopped for maybe 10 seconds, then started again. Same number. This time he answered, stood up from his workspace, walked toward the windows. I couldn't hear his words, but I could see his posture. Straight at first, confident, then gradually bending, shoulders curving inward like he was trying to make himself smaller. The call lasted 4 minutes. When he hung up, he stared at his phone like it had just bitten him. Then it rang again. Different number. He answered immediately. Yes, I can explain. There must be some misunderstanding. No, I had the files reviewed by our entire team. What discrepancies? He went silent, listening. His free hand came up to his forehead, pressed against it. I need to pull the original research, he said finally. Give me 20 minutes. I'll send everything over. He hung up, stood there for a moment, then turned and walked straight toward Gregor's workspace. I kept organizing files. Alphabetical order. Very important work. 10 minutes later, both of them came out. Gregor looked puzzled. Dalton looked like someone had just told him his house was on fire. Iris, Gregor said, can you pull all the research materials for the Grandstone project? Everything. Original sources, your notes, all of it. Of course, I said. Calm. Professional. When do you need it? Now, Dalton said. His voice had an edge I hadn't heard before. Right now. Okay. I opened my filing system, started pulling folders, took my time. Not slow enough to be obstinate, but not rushing either. Just thorough. The way good assistants are thorough. I handed Gregor a stack of materials. My original analysis, the raw data, the sources I'd used, everything I'd given Dalton 3 weeks ago. Gregor flipped through the first few pages. His expression shifted. This is detailed, really detailed. Iris is very thorough, Dalton said quickly. She helped gather the background information. Helped gather? Gregor looked up. Iris, did you write this analysis? I met his gaze. I compiled the research Mr. Dalton requested. He asked me to dig into their overseas operations, find any weaknesses or concerns. That's what I found. And the Brussels inventory scheme? The liability calculations? Those came from cross-referencing their quarterly filings with import declarations, I said. Took about a week to spot the pattern. Then another week to verify it through secondary sources. Gregor looked at Dalton. Dalton looked at the floor. Why is Grandstone's legal team saying the numbers don't match what was presented today? Gregor asked. Dalton's jaw tightened. There may have been some adjustments for presentation purposes to make the opportunity clearer to investors. Adjustments, Gregor repeated. The words sat there between them, heavy. The core analysis was solid, Dalton said. I just highlighted the positive aspects. That's standard practice. You know that. Hiding liabilities isn't highlighting positives, Gregor said. That's fraud. The word hung in the air. Dalton's face went pale. That's not what I didn't hide anything. I just presented the most investor-friendly version of the data. The most investor-friendly version, Gregor said slowly, of Iris's analysis. Dalton didn't respond. Gregor turned to me. Did you send your original analysis to anyone outside the firm? This was the moment. The question I'd known was coming. I could lie, probably should lie, but lying wasn't why I'd done this. Mr. Briggs contacted me 2 weeks ago, I said. Asked for my opinion on working with Dalton. After today's presentation, I felt obligated to share accurate information. He's making a $2 billion decision. He deserved to know the real numbers. The room went very quiet. Dalton found his voice first. You went behind my back? You undermined this entire deal? I shared accurate research, I said. The research you asked me to do. The research you then changed to make it sound better than it was. You had no authority to contact him directly. You had no authority to present my work as yours. Dalton stepped toward me, not threatening, but aggressive enough that Gregor moved between us. Enough, Gregor said. Dalton, go back to your space. I need to handle this. Handle this? She just destroyed a $2 billion merger. A merger built on falsified projections, Gregor said. Using research she did that you took credit for. Go, now. Dalton left. I could hear him on his phone before he even reached his workspace, voice rising, trying to do damage control with someone. Gregor sat down in the chair beside my workspace, looked at me for a long moment. How long has this been going on? He asked quietly. The Grandstone analysis? 3 months. No, him taking credit for your work. I considered that, since he started, but it got worse with Grandstone. Before that, it was smaller things. Ideas I'd mentioned that would show up in his presentations. Insights I'd shared that became his observations. I thought maybe that was just how teams worked. Everyone contributes. The senior person presents. That's how teams work when the senior person acknowledges the team, Gregor said. What he's doing is theft. He called me a secretary, I said. The words came out quieter than I intended. In front of everyone. Said I just handle scheduling and pull files. Like the last 8 years didn't matter. Like I was invisible. Gregor nodded slowly. I should have warned you. When Dalton came here, I heard rumors from his last place. That he was good at taking credit. I thought maybe it was just office politics. People being petty. I didn't realize that he'd do it to me. That he'd be stupid enough to do it with work this significant. Gregor finished. And careless enough to falsify the data on top of it. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Grandstone's board is convening an emergency session. They want to talk to whoever did the original analysis. That would be me, I said. Yes, Gregor said. He stood up. I need to make some calls. Don't go anywhere. I wasn't planning to. Where would I go? I just imploded a $2 billion deal and exposed my superior as a fraud. Not exactly a situation you walk away from. 20 minutes later, Gregor came back. Keller Briggs wants to speak with you. Video call, 5 minutes. My stomach did something complicated. What should I say? The truth, Gregor said simply. That's all you've been saying. Don't stop now. The call connected. Keller Briggs appeared on my laptop screen. He was older than I'd imagined, maybe 60, with gray hair and sharp eyes that suggested he didn't miss much. Iris, he said. Thank you for taking this call. Of course, Mr. Briggs. I've been reading your analysis, the real one. It's impressive work, extraordinarily thorough. Thank you. It's also devastating. If even half of what you found is accurate, this acquisition would have bankrupted my company within 2 years. I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. I need to know, Keller continued, why you sent this to me, after the presentation was already done, after your firm had already committed to this deal. Because the numbers were wrong, I said. The version presented today wasn't accurate. The liabilities are substantially higher than what was discussed. The restructuring costs are nearly double what was projected, and the timeline for profitability is off by at least 18 months, maybe more. And you felt obligated to tell me this. Yes, even though it would end the deal. The deal should end, I said. Based on real information, it's a bad acquisition. You'd be buying problems you can't afford to fix. Keller was quiet for a moment. Your colleague Dalton called me 15 minutes ago, said you were disgruntled, that you'd falsified some of the research to make him look bad. Something cold settled in my chest. I didn't falsify anything. I know. I had my team start verifying your sources while we've been talking. Everything checks out. In fact, you found issues our own analysts missed. He leaned forward slightly. Tell me something. How long have you been doing this kind of analysis? 8 years, but not officially. I assist with research and preparation. You do more than assist, from what I can see. This is senior analyst work, possibly better. I enjoy the work, I said carefully, but not the recognition. Apparently not. Keller smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. Dalton did something similar at his last firm, took credit for a junior analyst's work on a deal. We didn't find out until after he'd left. By then it didn't matter. This time, it matters. He paused. My board is voting to terminate all discussions with your firm. Not because of you, because we can't trust information coming from people who falsify projections and steal credit. But I want you to know something. The work you did, that level of analysis, I need people who can do that. I appreciate that, I said. I'm serious. When this settles, call me. We should talk about what real opportunities look like. The call ended. I sat there, staring at the blank screen, trying to process what had just happened. Gregor appeared in the doorway. Grandstone's pulling out, completely. They're also filing a complaint with the industry board about Dalton's conduct. I know. You just tanked a $2 billion merger, Gregor said. I know, I repeated. Good, he said, because it needed to be tanked. I looked up at him, surprised. I read your full analysis while you were on that call, Gregor continued. The real one. Iris, this deal would have ruined both companies. Grandstone would have collapsed under the debt, and we would have been liable for providing fraudulent projections. You didn't just save Keller's company. You saved ours. I didn't do it to save anyone, I said honestly. I did it because he called me a secretary, and because I was tired of being invisible. Well, Gregor said, you're not invisible anymore. He was right about that. By the end of the day, everyone in the firm knew what had happened, knew that I'd contacted Grandstone directly, knew that I'd exposed Dalton's falsified projections, knew that a massive deal had died because of it. The reactions were mixed. Some people looked at me with respect, others with suspicion, a few with outright hostility. Dalton didn't look at me at all. He'd been called into a meeting with the senior partners an hour after my call with Keller. Hadn't come out yet. I packed my bag at 6. Same time as always, like it was a normal day. It wasn't a normal day. As I walked toward the elevators, I passed the presentation room, still set up from this morning. The projection still showing the final slide from Dalton's presentation. His name in the corner, his contact information at the bottom, just a secretary. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. Tomorrow would bring consequences. I knew that. But tonight, riding down 40 floors to the ground level, I felt something I hadn't felt in 8 years. I felt seen. The next morning, I arrived at 7:30. Same as always. Made tea in the small kitchen area while the sunrise painted the windows gold. By 8, 3 people had already stopped by my workspace. 2 from legal, 1 from HR. Just routine questions, the HR woman said. Her name was Philippa. I'd helped her daughter get an internship last year. She looked uncomfortable now, about the Grandstone situation. Of course, I said. We went to a small meeting space. Nothing intimidating, just questions. When had I first contacted Keller? What had I shared? Had I taken any proprietary information outside the firm? I answered everything honestly, showed them the messages, explained my reasoning. You understand this is highly unusual, Philippa said. Contacting a client directly, sharing internal analysis without authorization. I understand. You could have come to Gregor first, or to senior management. I could have, I agreed. But by then the presentation was done. The damage was happening in real time. Keller needed to know before he signed anything. So you took it upon yourself to decide what information he should have. No, I said. I gave him the information he should have received in the first place. The accurate information. Before someone convinced him to spend $2 billion on a disaster. Philippa made notes, asked a few more questions, then said I could go. I went back to my workspace, tried to focus on regular tasks. Couldn't. At 9:45, Dalton walked past, moving quickly, carrying a single box. His face was blank, empty. He didn't look at anyone. Someone whispered, "Did he just get fired?" Gregor appeared 20 minutes later. "Can we talk?" We went to his workspace. Actual workspace now, not the previous partner suite. He'd turned down the bigger space when they'd promoted him. Said he liked being close to the team. "Dalton's gone," Gregor said without preamble. Effective immediately. The senior partners reviewed everything last night, found 3 other deals where he'd done similar things. Taken credit for other people's work, exaggerated projections, cut corners on verification. I absorbed that. 3 others. At least 3. Possibly more. They're still investigating. He leaned back. The Grandstone situation forced them to look closely. They didn't like what they found. And me. You're not fired, if that's what you're asking. But there are concerns. About protocol. About chain of command. About going outside the firm. I understand. Do you? Gregor asked. Because I need to know if you actually regret what you did, or if you'd do it again. I thought about that, really thought about it. I regret how it happened, the timing, the chaos, but the core decision, telling Keller the truth? No, I don't regret that. Gregor nodded slowly. That's what I thought. And honestly, it's the answer I wanted to hear. He pulled out a folder. The partners want to restructure how we handle research and analysis. They realized we've been wasting talent. People who understand the work but don't have traditional credentials or titles. People like you. What does that mean? It means they're creating an official analyst position, full role, proper title, fair compensation, and they want to offer it to you. I stared at him. You're serious? Completely. You've been doing this work for years. It's time we acknowledged that. Time we paid you for it. Time your name went on the analysis you produce. What if I say no? Then you say no, but I hope you won't. He slid the folder across. Look it over. Think about it. Let me know by Friday. I took the folder. Why are they doing this? After I just destroyed a huge deal. You didn't destroy it. You exposed it. There's a difference. And because Keller called me this morning, said he's considering future projects with us. But only if you're the one handling the analysis. He trusts you. That trust is worth more than any single deal. After Gregor left, I opened the folder. Read through the offer. The title, Strategic Analyst. The salary, triple what I'd been making. The responsibilities, exactly what I'd been doing unofficially for years. At the bottom, a note in Gregor's handwriting. You earned this 10 times over. Stop hiding your light. I sat there for a long time, holding that folder. 3 days later, I signed the papers. Became officially what I'd been unofficially for 8 years. The transition was strange. Same workspace, same colleagues, but different reactions. Some people congratulated me warmly. Others seemed confused. Like they couldn't quite reconcile the person who'd answered phones with the person now analyzing multi-million-dollar deals. One senior analyst, a woman named Gretchen, who'd always been pleasant but distant, stopped by my workspace. I owe you an apology, she said. I looked up, surprised. For not seeing you. I've worked here 6 years, walked past you hundreds of times, never once thought to ask what you actually did, what you were capable of. I just assumed that I was just support staff. Yes, and I'm sorry. That was lazy of me. And unfair. Thank you, I said. That means something. She nodded. For what it's worth, what you did with Dalton took guts. A lot of people here knew he was taking credit for other people's ideas. Nobody said anything. You did. After she left, I thought about that, about how many people had known, had seen, had said nothing. Being invisible had protected me in some ways. Let me learn without pressure. Let me build skills without scrutiny. But it had also trapped me, made me easy to exploit, easy to dismiss. Just a secretary. I wasn't invisible anymore. And that brought its own challenges. 2 weeks after accepting the new position, I got a call from Keller Briggs. I meant what I said, about talking when things settled. Are you interested? In what specifically? Working with us, leading our acquisition analysis team, building something from the ground up. It was tempting, really tempting. I just accepted a promotion here. I know, Gregor told me. I'm glad they finally recognized what they had. But if you ever want something different, the offer stands. We need people who tell the truth, even when it's inconvenient. I'll remember that. Good. And Iris? Thank you for what you did. My board ran their own analysis after you sent that information. You were right about everything. The hidden liabilities, the restructuring costs, all of it. If we'd gone through with that acquisition, it would have destroyed us. I'm glad I could help. You did more than help. You saved us. After we hung up, I sat with that for a while. Saved them. By telling the truth. By refusing to stay quiet when quiet was easier. I heard later, through professional networks, that Dalton tried to get hired at 2 other firms. Both turned him down. Word had spread about the falsified projections, about taking credit for other people's work, about what happened at Grandstone. Reputations in this industry are built slowly and destroyed quickly. He'd destroyed his. Part of me felt bad about that. Small part, the part that remembered him being pleasant those first few weeks. Before I understood what he was doing, but mostly I felt nothing. He'd made his choices, stolen credit he hadn't earned, falsified information that could have ruined people, and he'd called me a secretary, like it was an insult, like I was beneath notice. He'd been wrong about that. 6 months passed. I settled into my new role, started leading projects officially instead of ghostwriting them for other people. My name appeared on analysis reports. Clients started requesting me specifically. It felt good, strange, but good. One afternoon, I was working on a potential acquisition in the manufacturing sector when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Is this Iris? A woman's voice. Young, nervous. Yes. Who's this? My name is Rowan. I work at Hartfield Group. I heard about what happened with you and Dalton, about the Grandstone deal. Okay, I said carefully. My boss is doing the same thing, taking my analysis, presenting it as his own. I've been here 2 years and I'm so tired of being invisible, but I don't know what to do. Everyone says that's just how it works, that you pay your dues and eventually you get recognized. I closed my laptop. Where are you right now? At a cafe near my work, on my lunch break. Do you have evidence? Documentation showing what you've actually done? Yes. I keep copies of everything. My supervisor taught me that. She said, always protect yourself. Smart supervisor. Listen to her. I paused. What you're describing isn't paying dues. It's exploitation. And it doesn't get better by waiting. It gets better by forcing it into the light. But how? I can't just expose him. I'll lose my job. Maybe. Or maybe you'll gain your career. I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what I learned. Being underestimated only works as a weapon if you're willing to use it. And using it means risking everything. She was quiet for a moment. Was it worth it? What you did. I looked around my workspace. At my name on the door. At the analysis I was doing openly, with full credit. At the career I'd built from nothing, despite everyone assuming I was just furniture. Yes, I said. It was worth it. We talked for another 20 minutes. I didn't tell her what to do, just shared what I'd learned, how I'd documented everything, how I'd built relationships outside my immediate superior, how I'd finally stopped waiting for someone to notice me and forced them to see. After we hung up, I thought about all the people like us, doing the real work while someone else took the applause, staying quiet because speaking up felt too dangerous. I thought about Dalton, wherever he was now, probably still blaming me for his failures instead of his own choices. And I thought about Keller's offer, still open, still waiting. I wasn't ready to leave yet, still had work to do here, credibility to build, a career to establish on my own terms. But someday, maybe, someday I'd build something from the ground up, somewhere people got credit for the work they actually did, somewhere being smart mattered more than being charming. Somewhere, secretaries were recognized as the analysts they'd always been, just not today. Today, I had an acquisition to evaluate, with my name on it, my analysis, my reputation. Just a secretary, Dalton had said. He'd been right about one thing. I was just a secretary, until I decided I was something more. And then, nothing could stop me. Before I close this out, I want to say thank you for listening all the way through. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about the invisible people doing real work everywhere, do me a favor, hit that like button. Leave a comment telling me where you're from and if you've ever felt overlooked like this. And subscribe, because there are more stories like this one. Stories about people who refused to stay quiet, who fought back smart instead of loud, who won not by playing the game, but by changing the rules entirely. Your support makes these stories possible. Thank you for being here.